turn to your neighbor and say, I'm here to meet a good girlfriend. Are you it? Lily, I saw you back there. She was like, I'm not. Okay, you connected. Good. I love it. Because there are some first timers here tonight. Raise your hand if you're a first timer. Make yourself known. Actually, you just stand up.
Oh God.
Just do it. Pay attention to each other. Like look at each other and say, hi, I'm a first timer. So after, you can be like, what's up, bro? Woo! Okay, so check this out. I'm very excited for our talk tonight. It's on the topic of worthiness. Oh, I was expecting a little bit of a reaction. But basically, I'm a little shocked that that this hasn't been a topic that I've done before, because someone asked the question to me the other day. They're like, if you had thousands of people listening to you, you're like on a mountaintop, and you could give them one message, what would it be? And like write it down. And so I write down like boundaries, relationships, standards, like different things. But the one thing that really stood out that it all comes down to is worth. And like, if I could just tell them one thing, it's for you to know your worth. It reminded me that this has been on my heart for as long as I can remember, back to when I competed for Miss USA. In my Miss USA interview, one of the judges asked me, what do you think is the biggest issue facing women today? And I said, the fact that they don't know their self-worth. Because when you don't know your worth, everything spirals down from that place. Or when you do know your worth, everything builds from that place. And so that was my whole mission competing for Miss USA. I was like, I want people to know their worth, that they can like dream and not compromise and have these standards and values. And then I won Miss USA, and I felt an emptiness inside because I realized that I did have a wrong formula for my worth, in a sense. My formula was my performance plus other people's approval equals my worth. And that is a shakeable foundation. And I found myself the entire year feeling like I needed to prove my win. I just felt like I constantly needed to prove that I was the right choice. Did any of y'all ever feel like you need to just constantly be proving yourself, even after you got the thing? Like even after you got the thing, it could be taken from you in an instant because you weren't really meant to have it. And so there's something wrong with the way that we see worth. The way that we see worth is worthless. And I say that because I looked up this Google definition. Like, what does Google, like what does the dictionary say is the definition? And it says, getting an achievement deserving of recognition. I was like, oh my God, that is the literal definition. And then, like below it, you know how on Google it's like other definitions. Probably because I searched Bible stuff a lot, it gave me like the biblical view of worth, and I was like, oh, this will be good. And it says the balancing of the scales, someone who practically lives out their faith. And so what I found about those two is they're both really just based on performance. They come down to performance. And this is what I love about being a daughter of the King and living in the kingdom is his formula, the formula, is reverse. It's opposite the way that the world works. And you're going to find that as a theme just in almost every single area. Like even in the way that, you know, Jesus teaches, if someone wants your jacket, give him your coat. Like it doesn't make sense. Things just don't make sense. The principles in the kingdom don't really make sense. He flips things on its head. So what we're going to do in talking about worth tonight is we're going to look at it through the story of Queen Esther. Yeah. Okay, now listen to the timing of how cool this is. So, we're in the month of September, and okay, does anyone not know the story of Esther? It's okay if you don't worry, you're going to be lit with excitement, okay? So basically, this is why it matters. September, we're in the month of September. It's the Jewish high holy day of Yom Kippur. And that is the same day. So what had happened was, this guy, his name was Haman, and he's an enemy of the Jewish people in Queen Esther's day. He's an advisor to King Xerxes. And he's like, I want to get rid of these Jewish people. They had bad blood, like a long line of bad history. And so this is what they did. They cast a lot. They cast a lot to decide people's fate. And you can basically think of that as like casting a dice or like rolling a dice. So they roll this dice to decide the date that they're going to annihilate this race, the Jews. And the dice rolls on the Jewish people's high holy day of Yom Kippur. Why is this important? Because the high holy day is the day of atonement. The Day of Atonement is when the Jewish people go to the temple to atone for their sins, to hopefully either get forgiven or they owe something to God, they're making a sacrifice. And so Haman, the guy who rolls this dice and decides these people's fate, is thinking like these people are going to feel so betrayed by God. Like they're going to feel like this sentence came from him. And it just looks so like bad and so gnarly. You're like, God, that is just wrong. But it's just also so in God's nature that he just loves a good setup for him to shine. And he's like, yeah, right. And I'm going to flip that on its head, which is exactly what he does with Esther. Esther, an orphan girl, who is Jewish, by the way, who gets plucked out of her house, and she's living in a Persian palace. And God uses her to reverse this decree that these people are going to die on their Day of Atonement, and instead turns it into a day of celebration. It's called Purim, and they still celebrate it today. So, why is this important? Because God is a God of reversal. And we're going to see it in a few ways through Esther. You're going to see it a lot through the Bible. And that is why we can trust that his formula to worth is not like ours. So let's look at what we should really be defining our worth by. This beautiful Bible verse in 2 Peter 2:9. Okay, ready? But you are chosen, royal, holy, a daughter for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness and into his marvelous light. I'm going to say that just one more time, because this needs to be your barometer. We're going to kind of like weave this analogy of a thermostat through, because you set a certain setting for your thermostat. But when you decide your worth, when you know your worth in the kingdom, it doesn't fall based on your conditions. It doesn't fall based on how people treat you. It doesn't fall based on a breakup or your bank account or a job loss or followers on your social media, oh my gosh, or engagement on your reel, or how many views that you have, or how many people have downloaded your first single, or how many people have watched your movie. Like, your worth doesn't drop based on those conditions in the kingdom. And like, what would it be like if we just like literally were so unfazed? We were just so unfazed by people and what they did and how they treated us and what happened, and we just kept on going like we're freaking queens, because we are. Okay? So imagine this thermostat. You're setting it right now at royal, holy, chosen possession. God's possession. You're set apart, prepared in advance for good works. Okay? Okay. So, gotta drink some more water. Who's feeling a fire stirring within? Woo! Okay. Okay, so I'm working with, we're going with set up, not settling. This is why this thermostat is important, because you're going to set your worth and it doesn't move. You're set apart, not settling, and settled. Okay? So, oh my gosh, this is so good. So, like I said, Esther, she was an orphan. She didn't have parents. We don't know what happened to her parents, but she was raised by her cousin. And then she was basically she was taken out of her home against her will and put in a situation that she had she didn't have a say in whether she was going to the palace. It was just all the virgin girls had to go. And the king was going to choose which one he liked to be queen. Also, she was one of the only Jewish girls that was there. The rest of the women are Persian. And she had, okay, God. He's like, let's just pretend like that's God. We're spiritual, so we're even more excited. Or maybe we might have to turn it off. I don't know. But we're just going to go with it. Flashing lights. Woohoo. So she had to hide her identity. Okay, so she's already sort of in obscurity. She's she's an orphan. Then she has to go to the palace where she has to hide her identity. And so she gets there, and she really could have fallen into this trap of inferiority, where she's like, the king is never going to pick me because look at where I come from. I don't come from money. I don't come from status. I don't even know who my parents are. I might be hiding mine, but I know who my God is. And that is what gives me security. And I'm going to have wisdom to seek sound counsel, which she did. Haggai, who ran the harem, loved Esther. He gave her the favor. He gave her the advice. He told her what to do. And she won the favor of the king. And so it just makes me think, there's this quote, okay, that I think is really interesting. It says that success has less to do with your self-worth and more to do with clarity. I like this. I'm I see truth in that. Clarity, when you know where you're going, when you know where the goal is, you have less confusion, less chatter, less distractions, because you know where you're going. And also you're not caught up in your head, you're not about you as much. And so what I see in Esther is she also doesn't idolize the goal. Because when you idolize a goal, then that goal has control. It has control over determining your worth. And I realized that was part of my mistake when competing for Miss USA, is I had this clarity when I was 12 years old that was the direction I was going. I had this goal and I had a good reason behind it, and it gave me, because I had the vision, it informed my decisions to act like I was set apart by making this vow that I wasn't going to drink, I wasn't going to smoke, I wasn't going to have sex before I was married, I wasn't going to party, I was going to be so, such a good girl, And then after I met the goal, and I didn't necessarily have a next thing that was driving those reasons, I started to fall off a little bit. So it can't just be about the mission. Yeah, that's helpful, but the real clarity is having clarity in whose you are. And that is what gave Esther that grounding. And that security of, I come from no parents, no status, I'm actually not even supposed to be here, low-key. But she worked it. And don't you see how she could have so easily been just cowering in a corner? Mm-hmm. So what is it for you? Where might you be cowering an inferiority. You feel like you don't belong somewhere, and you're taking yourself out. Your worth should be set on a thermostat at royal, chosen, holy, set apart for good works in advance. That's where it should be set. But because you feel inferior, you're not rising up. Your temperature is dropping. Because maybe either you're controlled by the goal, or you feel inferior because you're not super clear on really whose you are and why that matters. So instead of cowering in inferiority, step out in favor, because that's what Esther did. And you can. And you can believe that you will find favor where you're meant to be. Yeah. Isn't that good? Yeah. Like, where do you need it right now? Where do you need to step out? Where might God be calling you? Where might you be where you're like, wow, I had no control over the circumstance? Because that's what it was for her. She was taken out of her home. It's like glorified sex trafficking, is what it was. Because it was for the king, so. So yeah, we'll get into some of those questions where you can really ask God, like after this in a soak. Okay, the next part is not settling. I love this, and I thought I was gonna go a whole direction of like not settling, like don't compromise your worth, because like we all know, like Esther, she didn't settle in the sense that when she was called to make this decision, okay, like she's confronted with the information, like, hey, like all your people are about to be killed. You need to go talk to the king. And she's like, well, he hasn't summoned me in 30 days. And did y'all know that if the queen even goes to the king without being summoned and he doesn't extend his scepter, that she could be, what's the word? Beheaded? Executed on the spot. Is that not nuts? That is your wife. But it was just not like that back then. And so she found herself once again in between a rock and a hard place. And so I was going to go the route of like she didn't compromise her like faith, and she rose up. But this is really what's been coming up for me. What I've been noticing. I've been noticing that when we don't really feel worthy, we isolate ourselves from people. We can do this in different ways that are sneaky. We can do it through overachieving. I found that I often felt and sometimes feel safer on the stage of achievement than I do in a circle of friends. I feel safer because no one can hurt me. I'm creating this barrier where I'm still connected but not really. It's a mask. It's a way of hiding, but in a sneaky way. So when I look at Esther, she's in this place of achievement in a sense. She has made it. Like she's in the highest position you could possibly be as a woman in that time. She could be cushy in her pretty room with sparkles and have her handmaidens. She does not have to like connect with anyone. But this is what she does when she finds this out, when she finds out the news. She says, first of all, she says, if I perish, I perish. And then she says, have my maids and all the people fast and pray with me for 3 days. And that really stands out to me because she's in this high, walled up position where she could easily be so afraid to ask for help. Because what if the people think she's weak? What if the people judge her? What if? And I don't know about y'all, but I am a little shocked because I've just been more mindful lately, or any of y'all into mindfulness? Raise your hand, y'all are into mindfulness. Come on, we're in LA. No, we're all in therapy. But I've just been shocked at the level to which I make decisions based on what people will think. And so it's safer not to reach out. It's safer not to ask for help. It's safer to act like you have it all together. And so the question is, are you going to isolate because you're afraid? Or are you going to lean in and stay at your royal, chosen, set apart, worthy level and fast with friends? People say that we go, what is it? You go faster, you go faster alone, but further together. I think when we don't feel like we really belong, we come up with ways, with different routes to be accepted or praised or recognized or unseen entirely. Or I'm just gonna just totally not fit in at all. Or I'm just gonna judge all the people because everyone else is wrong except for me. I don't like how they do this, I don't like how they do that, they're cliquey, So, where are you hiding? How are you hiding? What is your mask? The answer is to not idolize metrics and men. Men in the literal sense, definitely don't do that. But also people. People is what I mean. And metrics, the fear of man, And metrics, when I say that, I mean results. When you put something out there, you feel like God called you to do something, and so you finally do the thing where you take a step out and you take some more steps, but you're not seeing the results. And so you're I'm going to look like such a loser. This is so embarrassing. I'm just so embarrassed. And so you stop doing it. Stop doing it. But that's idolizing metrics. Or idolizing people. What will they think? Because when we idolize metrics or people or the goal, we are a slave to them. They have control. They are on the throne, not God. So our word really comes down to freedom. Don't you want to be free? Yes, Lord. Okay. All right, and then our last point, settled. Let me just take a drink. All right, this is when you're on the thermostat and things turn up. Things turn up. Because you finally actually get the thing. You finally actually meet the dream guy. Or you get into a door that you've been praying to get in. And then you're in it. And then suddenly you start to freak out. And you're oh, no, this is not my baseline. This is not, I'm not worthy of this. I don't belong here. And you start to back out. You start to try to lower the temperature. Because you feel like an imposter. Exactly. So, when I started dating Chris, my husband, so like he was everything on my husband list and more. Love that. And that was great, and I loved it, and I was like, oh my gosh, Lord, this is so amazing. But here's the thing, is because of that, he also did not need me. Before that, in my relationships, I always knew what my role was. I always knew how they needed me, like where I fit, how I filled the gap. They needed me in some way. Chris needed me in no way whatsoever. He was like totally spiritual, like on another level, like basically Jesus. He didn't need me to be like a prayer warrior, like he had prayer people, like he didn't need my spiritualness. He was, he had money, he had friends, he even had friends who were women who were like really successful, like godly women. And so I was just like, it made me feel like I just didn't know what I had to offer. I did not understand, like how you kind of feel like you're on a balance beam where you're like, I'm trying to find my grounding, like where I fit here. And so he kept just trying to explain, like, I just love you. And I'm like, okay. So I had some moments where I tried to sabotage our relationship. I don't know if it was intentional. I don't think I was like intentionally like, I'm going to try to sabotage a relationship, but I did, and he did not let me. And he was not scared of my craziness or my like emotions, and he was so calm and safe and rooted and grounded, and it gave me this picture of what Jesus is like with us, where he's like, oh, you don't have to do anything, like you don't have to, I just love you. No, like I just love you, And Chris is like, I love like your spirit. I love just the essence of you. And I feel like that's how Jesus is with us, because hello, he created it. He created the essence of who we are. And I started to notice that I started to feel just like a settling in my spirit. I started to feel like just relaxed and secure, and like, ooh, like what? This is what it feels like to feel like loved, and to get a picture of our relationship with God and how he wants it to be. Yeah. And oh my gosh, how would we live our life differently? And so then we look at Esther, and she has this moment, okay, where she does the thing, she does the prayer with her friends, and then she goes to the king and she's like, holds her breath, are you going to cut off my head? And he doesn't, thank God. And he's like, as a matter of fact, I'll give you anything you want, up to half my kingdom and more, make your request. And she's like, thank you, Lord. And so she does her wise strategy. She invites him to 2 banquets. She invites the enemy Haman in, because she's like, you're gonna die, son. And this is another way that reversal happens, a theme of reversal. Okay, ready? So Haman, who's the enemy of the Jews, who has the whole extermination set up, he also had these gallows set up to hang Esther's cousin Mordecai that day. Okay. So then Esther in the room with the king is like, Haman is the enemy, and he has deceived you, and he wants to kill me, your wife, and all the Jewish people. And he was like, what? And so then the king has Haman hung on those gallows that Haman hung for someone else. And then he makes Mordecai the advisor. Wow. I'm just saying, if any of y'all are in some crazy situations right now where you're like, this just feels gnarly, this just feels cruel, like this just feels like God has deserted me, he does not love me. God is, he's really in the business of stories. Like, I just feel like he really likes a good story, and so that's why sometimes he doesn't answer prayers super quick or just like give it to you, because he's like, no, but then it won't be a good story. and so then Esther like does the thing, and she's like, cool. And she's probably relieved. And then King Xerxes is like, okay, Esther, here's my signet ring, and here's a pen. You write the edict. You write the new decree. I want you to rewrite it. And I'm just thinking in this moment, as a woman who's not supposed to be in that palace because she's Jewish, she just revealed her identity for the first time, who's an orphan, who probably didn't get an education. Like, she could have in that moment been like, oh, no, like, not me. Like, she finally got in the room, she did that thing, and then God wants to take it to another level. Oh no, now you're in the room and you're going to stay in the room. We're going to turn it up. And that's the moment where she could have backed out because imposter syndrome. Or are you just so rooted in knowing who your Father is that you're not wrapped up in what you don't have? You're not wrapped up in what you don't have to offer. You're not obsessed with yourself.
Yeah.
You're like, well, God put me in the room, so I'm just going to say yes and do it. I have some women in this women's group who, when I ask them to do something, like, hey, will you speak tonight? Hey, will you open tonight? They say yes. Yes. And to me, that is a character trait of humility. Because it's just not about like, oh, I'm scared. Oh, I've never done this before. Like, oh, you know? It's just like, well, I'm being called to do it, so I'm going to walk through. It's not about me. Isn't that so freeing? So what is coming up for you right now that you're like, oh my gosh, those things, those emails that I've been getting of like invitations, and I just didn't think that I belonged there. I've been taking myself out prematurely. Like, you self-reject so other people don't have to do it. So yeah, Esther writes the edict. So all the people, the Jewish people, could defend themselves. And that was awesome. And then in the same sense, like just looping back to my story with Chris, we went on this ministry trip together right when we first got married. And we were like going to different youth groups. And these were like hours long, like services. And I would be sitting there like holding these 13-year-olds in my arms who were crying, telling me like what they were going through, how they were being treated. And my whole body just was like burdened. Like, I'm like, I want to take you back with me and like raise you. And I'm like, but I can't do that. So, and I also I can't tell you everything that I want you to know. So I was like, God, what can I wish I could just leave them with something. And God was like, then you should. You should write something, like what you want them to know. And so that inspired me to write this devotional called Rise Up Princess, 60 Days to Revealing Your Royal Identity, which is like what I would want to leave with anybody who, if I didn't have enough time, I could be like, okay, you need this, you know? And so I just hope that that's speaking to you, that like when you know whose you are, and you're just so secure in that worth of like, God says I'm royal and chosen, so I'm just going to go with that. You know, that makes me settled in my spirit. I'm not frantic. I'm not stressed. I'm not earning or proving or hustling. I'm just doing the thing. And instead of being frantic or plagued with imposter syndrome, I'm just going to flow. So, favor to combat inferiority when you are set apart. Fast with friends when you want to step back in isolation, so you will not settle. And flow when you want to turn down the dial or step out of the room and you feel like an imposter. And that is the kingdom lesson on your word.
Woo!
Okay, just turn to each other, because I love when churches do this. I actually don't, but it's funny. So just turn to each other and be like, I'm going to walk out of here changed.
shame.